If you are a softball or baseball player and you want more power, faster bat speed, and higher exit velocity, Swing Dynamics is the program for you. Rob Cruz has just released his Swing Dynamics Bat Speed Training Program. The system comes with 4 custom Pro Maple bats, online training videos, a mobile app, pregame, preseason, and off-season bat speed programs, and more. To learn more about Swing Dynamics, log on to www.complete.game. That's www.complete.game.
It was kind of, I think, 2 or 3 days later, that's when I saw your post about why are we teaching kids to learn how to learn to learn? Like, it's like, where's the parent accountability of old school, of doing your job and understanding, making sure that we're teaching our kids, you know, that it's not your coach's job to do everything. We're just the guiding force to help lay the stones and direct you so you don't fall off path. But, I mean, that leads into multiple topics, I guess, sure you could talk about in situations. But, yeah, Carrie and I just kind of talked about the burden and the expectation that kids they're not athletic anymore. We're getting too many kids that can't do a squat. They don't know where their core is. They don't know how to engage muscles, but their parents want them to swing hard. They want me to teach them how to throw 65 miles an hour. And when I tell them I can't because they haven't been in the weight room, and they don't work out, or her body anatomy, she doesn't have enough mass, or, you know, when we study biomechanics and you throw that in there, they're like, I don't know what you're talking about, but I just need her to throw fast. And I think you're running out of athletic skilled kids now because of the parents that don't understand that.
Yeah. So we already started the podcast.
Let's dive in, right?
So we already here. So, and I wanted to touch on all those topics and so many more, and I want to go deeper into those topics because those are issues that are just like human issues. Like we're also developing people. Yeah. Like a big part of what we do as coaches / especially instructors, because it's instructing is a lot more intimate, that one-on-one, 1-on-2, 1-on-4, than be coaching a whole team of 20 people or 15 people. That's a little bit different of a platform. And I think that because of that, we're charged to a greater task. And it's who I have to be more concerned, I'm sure you do too, with the who than the what. Like, who are you? Who do you want to be? Yeah. And a big part of our value systems as instructors is the filter that we express ourselves through teaching and through personal player human development. And I like to call it human development nowadays because so many people are calling it player development. It's driving me crazy, and it's not even close. So I'm like, okay, if y'all are calling that player development, then I'm not calling it player development anymore. I gotta change it out. I gotta change my vernacular. But I think you're 100%, you know, on the money, and it's a huge frustration because accountability. I always like to say that accountability is the athlete has to learn to be accountable to themselves. Yeah. They have to be accountable, obviously, to their parents and their coaches, and then they also want to be accountable to their teammates. I had an opportunity to be on the field lately with an 18U team. And we were a 16U team last year, and it's like, until you guys figure out how to play for each other, no matter how good you are individually, and you know, individually you guys are all going to some pretty nice schools, that's great, but winning is winning, and it doesn't mean you're going to win, and it doesn't mean you're going to figure out how to win, but it's still, at the end of the day, you know, it's still an individual team sport, and as we dig into those things, I wanted to first introduce you. Hi. Hi, we have our very special guest, Coach-Alli McKnight. Did I pronounce it right, Alli?
Yeah.
Alli McKnight. And she is hailing all the way from Tennessee. And I believe you're in the Murfreesboro, the Middle Tennessee area, is that right? Okay. Yeah. And I want you to just tell us a little bit about. Well, first, I want to find out. I want you to tell us where you grew up. I don't know if you grew up there, and then how you got into softball. Go ahead.
Okay. So I'm actually from California, the Bay Area, born and raised there. I am an only child, so I played every sport known to man, 4 sports growing up. I played travel softball, played elite level, flew all over to play. And then I decided I wanted to go and do something completely different and kind of play at a lower level school to help build a program. I went to a private Catholic school, so super small school, and I just kind of wanted to stay in that type of like family environment. So my 3 college choices were in New York, Texas, and Tennessee, and I was actually going to sign with a D1 in Texas. And right before I got ready to sign, when I looked at my paperwork, it showed redshirt. And when I called the coach, I was like, hey, you sent me the wrong paperwork. It said redshirt on here. And they're like, oh, yeah, we redshirt all of our freshman pitchers. And I was like, man, that's a huge red flag. You didn't tell me that when I was going through, my recruiting process. And so I decided, that's not how I want to start things off. And so I decided to go play for a really small NAI school here in Tennessee because I had a starting position. So I just was that mentality of I don't care what the title of the school is. I'm going to go where I'm going to play. And I wanted to experience something completely different. So, of course, South is way different than California. And I started all 4 years, played every game pretty much. Then I moved back home. I coached at my high school I went to, trained all their athletes, and then I saw the need. My pitching coach growing up in California was Rich Balswig. He was one of the best pitching coaches. Played for men's professional fast pitch for Team USA. And what I was able to have in California, I noticed that Tennessee didn't have that. And I thought, man, these girls out here need something way better than what they have access to. And I need to take the resources that I have and the connections that I have and bring that out here. So I moved right back out to Tennessee, and I think I just did lessons on the side for a little bit just for fun to see how it would go and just kind of get a feel, because I'm not from here, I'm not in this community, and just kind of get a feel for that. And I started with probably like 10 clients by myself almost 11 years ago. And now I have 5 other instructors that work for me, and I think we have probably over 300 clients between all of us. I train kids through an app too. I have remote training. I've traveled with Carrie a lot and taught. So that's me.
All right, well, great.
In a nutshell.
There's a reason why I wanted to have you on the show, and because one, there aren't that many. I hate to use the term social media coaches, but having the ability, the courage, 2, the ability to be effective on social media, where it's really hard to people think you make it look easy, but it's not easy. I know it because I do it. And a lot of it is how we, not what we know necessarily, but how we can effectively communicate it. And that's the reason why I have you on the show, because I really appreciate your ability to convey and get things across in a very concise, articulate way that anybody can learn, anybody can pick up on it and catch up with what you're doing. So, having said that, I wanted to know your why. What's your why? Like, why?
It's so funny that you asked that, because I did a business mentorship with CJ Beatty about 2 years ago. And I saw him post something on social media and I shared it. He messaged me and he was like, I just looked over your Instagram. He was like, I really like what you're doing. We talked a little bit, and I think like 2 months later, I flew out there Easter weekend with another pitching coach, and we were out there for 48 hours, and we did like a super intense workshop with him on the business side. And that's actually the first question he asked me. And I just kind of sat there and I froze for a second. And I'm normally one that I am a talker. California's a lot like New Yorkers. We could just go and do all that. And I just froze, and I was like, oh my God, I don't like this feeling. I felt like anxiety. And he was like, why do you do what you do? And I started crying, and I was like, I'm not emotional. What is going on? And he was like, why are you crying? And I was like, because I'm a mom. And the love that I have for my daughter, when you're like the biggest supporter, you're always going to make sure as a mom, your kid, you're going to do everything you can. And when you don't have the right answers, they're not going to know that you don't have the right answers. Your child's always the one that comes to you. The support that your kids sometimes don't know, that you're constantly thinking about them. You're constantly researching for them. You're constantly trying to help them. It's the same love and support that I give to my girls as if they're my children. And the more that I feel like sometimes we get caught in like, should I be doing this? Oh, I'm tired today. And I always think, no, those are my babies. Like, I've got to go hard. The research that I do, the countless hours, it's the same thing I do for my daughter. And it's not just, there's some instructors and coaches, they're like, I care about the W and I care about the reputation and it's me. That's not why I feel like God put me on this planet, that it's just a ministry that he told me that I need to do for the softball community. And because softball's not forever. Their lives are forever. And they're going to be somebody's mom. They're going to be somebody's wife. They're going to be somebody's coach possibly one day. And it's my job to put them into the world and make sure that they impact somebody else the way that other parents are expecting me to impact their child. And the way that I want to impact my own daughter. She plays softball. She's with me at lessons all the time. And so I see my babies at the tournaments all the time, and the support that I want them to feel, because sometimes their moms can't be there because they have other, siblings that are playing. And my daughter played against a couple of my clients on Saturday, and it just like, I could sit there for 48 hours and watch softball just to watch my girls play. So that's just my why, is just the way that I mother and the way I want to mother the children, and how that feels when somebody impacts my daughter, and how that feels as a mom. I want other moms to feel like their daughters are safe.
That's really good.
Yeah.
I appreciate you sharing that. So, so now you're in Middle Tennessee. You decided that you wanted to start a life here, there in the South there, and you have this little company. I'm just not little anymore. I'm sure you're killing it. I'm sure you're killing it right now. And how'd you end up taking it to the level that you took it to? Because you've taken it to I consider you to be a master coach. So how do you go from lessons to master coach? What was that transition like? And do you feel the difference? And do you feel the growth in how you've evolved as a coach, mom, instructor, woman? Do you feel
I think the biggest thing is I had to get it so wrong to get it right. And years ago when I first started, I taught everything: hitting, pitching, defense, catching. And I went to a hitting clinic with Josh Bloomer and Carlton Salters when up here in Chattanooga. And as they were demonstrating, one of my instructors at the time, I looked at her and I was like, holy smokes, I'm not teaching the right thing. And I stopped for like a month and just studied. And I just researched all the top hitting coaches. This was, you're talking 10 years ago. And I just studied, and I just revamped a completely new program because I had to get it wrong. And I needed somebody to tell me, look, I see where you're going and I think you're going to be a great coach, but you got to make sure that you're researching. You can't just go off of the college knowledge that you have. And I thought, all right, let's go. And that's what I did. And then I just started, I went and got certified by Rick Pauly years and years ago, studied with him, became good friends with him. I still studied my pitching coach. I studied Paisley when she first started, and then I just really started to find the identity. And then I did Carrie's business mentorship first, of how to build the business, what's my philosophy, who am I as a coach, what am I trying to achieve. I was lost, kind of like, okay, I have this idea, like what I need to design, like a mental path or like a blueprint in my head. And then that led me into her mentor or her coach's certification. And this last, I grinded so hard to make sure that it wasn't like I want to be this huge social media platform. I want to be on the platform that God intended me to be for the children. And whatever he told me I needed to do, I was just going to write it out, whatever that looked like. And so now I'm one of Carrie's elite level 2 instructors. I travel with her sometimes to teach. I take my daughter to her to give lessons because my daughter don't listen to me. And we got certified in biomechanics, human performance. My cousin is one of the top like performance training and nutritionists down in Long Beach. So I will fly and train with him. And I mean, I just study as much as I can to make sure that I give the girls, it doesn't matter what level they want to go to. Opportunity is opportunity. And whatever that looks like, I want to make sure that I prepare them 100% for that opportunity.
Cool. So you mentioned a lot of people you mentioned so many of my favorite people.
You know?
Like I like Josh Bloomer. Matter of fact, I met him for the first time at a TPI certification in New Jersey.
Yeah. He's awesome.
And yeah, I like him a lot. I like him. And Carlton Salters is one of my favorite guys. I love the way he breaks things down. And then, Rick Pauly, Dr. Rick Pauly is like one of my guys. He's my guy.
Love him.
But, because I coached his daughter, Sarah Pauly, in the pro league. She's great too. And then obviously, my relationship with Carrie. Carrie's my little sister. Yeah. I mean, me and Carrie go back. I like her evolution. Oh my gosh. I'm so proud of her.
Crazy.
I'm so proud of her.
A mentor you need. She's awesome.
Yeah. She's it. So yeah. So you mentioned some people that are really near and dear to my heart.
Great.
So that's cool.
They're awesome.
So I want to get down to some of the nitty gritty stuff. I have some notes written down about some of the things that I want to talk to you. So you talked about who your influences were. I see that. What was it like growing up in your household? What was that like? Only child, right? Only child, sports.
Yep. I went to private school. My whole life, actually, from kindergarten all the way through my college was private. So I never knew public school until I worked in public school. And I was like, dear God, this is crazy. But that's a whole other story. But I played soccer, softball, basketball, and volleyball growing up. I was the kid that I think I was naturally gifted with a lot of talent, but my work ethic was not there. Like it was just, at the time in California, there was a small percentage of really good athletes. I pitched every inning in high school. The girl before me set records. I came in, beat her records. And I should have practiced more. I mean, that's just what it was. I mean, and I don't, my parents were the parents too, my parents divorced when I was younger, but they both were like, Allie, you got to put in the work. I'm not going to make you. If I never got cut from a team, but if I did, they were the parents that were like, well, you're going to have to work harder. Like it was never a hand me. It was never, I'm going to call. It was never this and that. They defended me when they needed to, but it was a very stay in your lane, work hard, support your teammates, do the right thing. I probably could have got a higher scholarship. Without a better work ethic, I still was Gatorade National Player of the Year twice. I think it was my sophomore and junior year in high school. And so when I look back, I'm like, damn, well, what if I really did do a lot of work? What could I have done? But I think that it helps me to train kids the way that I do now. I don't tell them, I use my stories when I need to, but I always tell them like, look, my days are done. It's not about me. It's, about your journey and what you need out of it and where we're going to go with it. Cause that's how I know how I can train you. But it was, as you get older, you have to, what I love about playing multiple sports was the adversity of having to be put in vulnerable situations that each sport comes with and to be able to tackle vulnerability. And that's how you're able to make changes and adapt. And I think that that's what helped me to be successful without the right work ethic, if that makes sense. And so The pressure, it was a college prep school, so our classes were harder. I missed out on a lot of social stuff. Just having to say, I can't, I got a game, I can't, I got practice. I was going from one practice to the other, to lesson, staying up late, getting work in, missing out on sleep. But I loved it. I mean, sports was just something that I absolutely loved, and I did it because that's just what I wanted to do. And you didn't have to, I didn't complain about it. I think the only time I complained was when I got to high school and my mom was like, Allie, we can't play 4 sports, girl. We gotta I was flying everywhere to play softball while I was playing volleyball. Our soccer and basketball seasons are in the winter just because our weather. So I chose basketball over soccer. And then I was like, all right, I'm getting older. I'm starting recruiting. I gotta really, scale back on some of the things and where my heart is. And so that I chose volleyball and softball. But it was just, I think too, just because I was an only child, there wasn't like playtime with your siblings. It was, all right, well, let's go practice. It's all I got. I just got me. So, it was, I didn't have a bad, anything. I think the only thing was just when my parents divorced. And that was probably the hardest part. But I think sports just was my outlet to be able to get through it and forget about it. And I think that helped me in my older years when I became a parent and when I got married, and now that I'm a coach, and I also give lessons to a lot of my daughter's teammates and friends. And it just, it shapes you big time in how your perspective on things and situations. I think moving to the South helped a lot. Because it's just so faith-based out here, and the way that a lot of parents thrive off of that. And it's just part of the standard that and we can get into standards later. That's a whole nother door. But I think that's just a lot of, I don't think I would be able to be the coach that I am today if I was still in California.
Right. And I think as we move and navigate life, everything that we do, all the choices and decisions that we make, good and bad, make us who we are. Yeah. For the most part. I think that's really, really, really truthful. So, pitching wise.
Yeah.
Because I know you. So, on your website, it says that you offer instruction to players ages 6 to 18. And I want to. It's funny because when I was the last time I saw you was when I was in Murfreesboro. Yeah. And I had an opportunity to work with your daughter actually. And I was impressed that a 7-year-old, at the time she was 7,
yeah,
could be so, 1, coordinated, 2, have such a high aptitude for picking up something really quickly.
Yeah.
And then 3, being able to execute independently. And those are the 3 things that I'm finding we don't see that very often. Because sometimes I'll have 16-year-old kids and I'm like, I'll tell them the same thing every time I see them for 6 months, and I'm seeing them once a week. Yep. And then you have a 7-year-old like your daughter, and I'll be like, hey, do this, walk away. I'll turn my head, she's already doing it, she got it. So the level of, so what are some of the strategies that you use? Obviously, everybody's not like that. Every kid has different ways in which they learn and different things. So what are some of the strategies that you have employed to help players to be able to coordinate the movements, learn things, accelerated learning, not only learning it, but retention, and then I'll actually transitioning that into an actual game, which is that's the whole point. Yeah. The whole point is we come in for instruction, but we want to be good on the field too. So how do you navigate that?
When they come into lessons, like this is how I am. This is the expectation when you walk in this building. We're going to have fun. We play music at lessons and things like that because it's a multi-purpose facility and my other instructors are there at the same time. But there's business. My lessons are 3 or 4 girls in an hour, and it's constant. We're talking. You're not going to let me talk the entire time. You're going to ask questions. We're going to mentally get a little bit smarter, because I think we drill too much of the physical aspect. We're losing the mental part of the game. And so, which we're not growing the brain. We're not growing the knowledge enough. And I want to drill the knowledge and the mental training of being able to compartmentalize, to be able to break things down, to be able to do that in a, okay, right now you're in between innings. This is when we slow things down. All right, now you're in the middle of pitch to pitch. What's our main focus? So being able to use different cues, and being able to navigate that. I don't let my kids cut corners. Like it's to the point. There is no time. If you don't want this, you got to let me know, but I'm going to hold you way more accountable than you ever thought anybody would. Because when you're a representation of softball, like softball doesn't owe you anything at all. Just because your mom signed you, like it's just, you got to go and just do it. And there's no reason behind it. You can't get upset for the work that you didn't put in. I tell my girls a lot about, there's his name was John Scalinos. I don't know if you know that story or about him. He was a baseball guy, and he walked into a convention years ago. Like, I think I was probably not even born then, long time ago. And he walked into, what I think the baseball conventions, like ABCA or something like that. So he spoke, and he had a home plate, like on a chain around his neck. And he asked everybody, what's the dimension of a home plate, or how many inches? And everybody's like, well, 17. And he was like, that's right. And he was like, when somebody throws a ball over and over, we don't tell them, okay, let me widen the plate. Let me make this plate 18 inches. Oh, okay. He threw it a little bit off in the river. Let me make this plate now 19 inches. And now you're letting kids get away with the bare minimum, or thinking it's okay to not make adjustments, and it's okay to not get to work. And he explained to them, the home plate is always going to be 17 inches. Like, there's no way around that. So do your job, do what you're supposed to, stop cutting corners, and get to work. And so that's kind of, when I heard that story, I think I heard it like 7 or 8 years ago, I was like, there it is. Like, that's how I'm going to make sure my girls understand that mechanics and foundation and training and the work ethic, there's no cutting corners. There is no cheating at all whatsoever. That plate is not going to widen to 18 or 19 inches. Like, ever.
It's funny because as you're talking, I'm thinking about how when I get around the coaches who are actually getting results, mm-hmm. who I consider to be actually good. There's not that many of them, by the way.
No.
Unfortunately.
No.
But most parents don't know the difference between good instruction and excellent instruction, or even bad instruction. They just like, well, I'm taking my daughter to her pitching coach, or I'm taking my daughter to her hitting coach, or I'm taking my son to his fielding coach, or whatever they do.
Yeah.
But there are levels, and there are different softballs. There's some people are playing this brand of softball over here, other people are playing this brand of softball over here. And if we don't figure out as an instructional industry, as a coaching mm-hmm. industry, how to integrate mental skills, real mental emotional skills, into what we're doing, it's going to be very difficult to get kids to thrive.
For sure.
And I think a lot of the stuff that we want to see in an athlete would happen at the kitchen table at home.
Yeah.
And we're getting them, and we're like, you don't really have the ability to compete, but you think because you did the movements and you mm-hmm. did the movements and you learned how to have the right swing, that's going to be enough. And I always say that's just 20% of it. Even if your swing was like perfect, which I don't even know what that is, but if it was a thing to be perfect, that would still be just 20% of the whole pie. Yeah. And the other 80 would be, the mental, emotional, cognitive, visual, all the other aspects of it, which I find that it's very, very. I'm not finding that a lot of athletes have that going on. So when a coach like you says, I'm going to hold you to a standard, I'm going to hold you to a standard of excellence, and because this is my standard, and hopefully one day it'll be your standard. Because sometimes the problem is like when I have a player, like I'll have a standard when they come in to the facility, but then they go back to their team, and the standard isn't the standard that I've set for them, or when they go home it's not the standard. So I'm like, and I try to encourage the kids. I'm like, look, you're responsible to go back to your team and be the leader and still have that same standard, even though everyone else doesn't. And I think that the leadership part of it, empowering young girls and young boys to have the leadership and be able to go in and be the leader of the team and say, if I'm doing for example, if I'm doing side toss, if one of my hitters is doing side toss with a teammate and the teammate is standing in the wrong spot, throwing the pitch to the wrong spot, but you don't say anything, you just let them keep throwing the pitch to the wrong spot. Now you're changing your swing to hit the pitch in the wrong spot.
Yeah.
You haven't really brought that, the standard that we set to the other places you go, and even at the college level. I don't think that kids are confident enough in themselves to have a hitting or pitching talk with a recruiter. If a college coach is recruiting you, you need to talk pitching, you need to talk hitting. Otherwise, you're going to go into that situation and you're going to be like, what have I done? This person is clearly incompetent. They have no idea, but that's your fault because you never had the conversation with them before you got there.
Yeah, no, I agree.
And I'm finding that a lot with those players that are at their recruitable age. They're struggling with those things.
Yeah.
So from a pitching standpoint, we talk spin, we talking athletic ability. How important of a role is athleticism in this thing? Because I'm finding that if you're just an athlete, you're going to dominate. It's so easy to beat non-athletes, even without training.
Yeah.
So because it's like I have an athletic advantage over you because I'm bigger, faster, stronger.
Yeah.
I actually play other sports like basketball and things, and I'm taking my athleticism from basketball, and now I'm bringing it to softball, and I'm just dominating all the other players. Are you finding that we're lacking the athleticism that we need in our young players at an early age?
Oh, for sure, 100%. We talked about that actually in our certification with Dr. Twitty down in Alabama, and he does. It's that censorship that we do, what we train, that we put kids on, and they lack basic movements of, like I said, a squat, a lunge. I think COVID had a lot to do with that too. Too many kids didn't go outside and play. I mean, I think when we were younger, you were constantly outside all the time. You were riding your bikes, playing hide and go seek, walking with your neighbors, playing basketball, kickball, wiffle ball. You don't see that anymore. I mean, I get it. We live in a different world too, where you have to watch your kids outside. But kids just aren't they're not moving. I mean, and so I think parents don't understand, and I've made posts about it all the time, how important it is to get your kids outside, take the electronics away, get them in with some type of a trainer, wherever that be. It doesn't have to be weights. It doesn't have to be high intense. Get their bodies moving. And the way that it prepares their mind too, it's a 2-for-1, and it makes our job 20 times easier to get them to a level that they need to. I had a client about probably a year ago, and the dad was like, she's not look at this girl at her travel team. She's pitching so fast. And I said, that's great. Wonderful. And she was like, well, how do I get, my daughter to do that? And I said, you got to get her working out. And he was like, well, she plays all these sports and I don't know what to tell you. You're asking my professional advice, which I'm trained in. And I'm telling you, her body's only going to be able to move to the degree that it's trained to.
Yep.
You know, and my girls are like, oh, Coach-Alli, you make that look so easy. And I'm like, well, babe, I work out every day. Like, I can do these movements. I practice it on a day-to-day basis, but I also work out to be able to still show you how to do these movements, to keep my body healthy. And so, yeah, I'm going to make it look easy. You can make it look easy too, just like the girls you see on TV, just like the MLB players that you see, because they train the little things. Dr. Twitty tells us all the time, nobody is immune to the fundies, not even the pros. Like, you got to get out there and do the fundamental things all the time. And, you know, the basic things. Like, my daughter, there's her little travel team. There, our little Murfreesboro group. One of the girls was there too, Avery. They're probably one of the best 9U players in the state of Tennessee. I mean, definitely in our area, but their work ethic is like so unmatched. I mean, they practice together in a group, and you're talking about, like, my daughter this weekend picked up with a second-year 10U team that are all fifth graders, and my daughter is in third grade and all of this big. And, like, she doesn't have the mass that everybody else does, but I send her on Monday nights at Tommy's house. Brindley's trainer comes in and trains a bunch of softball athletes. My daughter goes and does it. I mean, Brindley's her hitting coach because she had a fabulous hitting coach and still does. You know, you got, like, you're like, goes back to, like you said, you got to do that research. And I can't, like, my daughter and her teammates are good for their age because of the work ethic that they have. Now, yes, some of it is God-given. There's just some kids that have God-given talent that that's just their purpose, and God wanted them to go play Power 5 and make an impact, like your Skylar Wallaces and your Montana Fouts and, you know, those type of athletes, your Rachel Garcias and stuff. But, you know, your kids that are going to make a name for themselves in one season that really changed the game, those are the kids that had the talent but had a lot of good work ethic and stayed in their lane. And they did everything, the nutrition, the sleep, the working out, the missing out on social media, the mental training. I mean, everything comes into it. But I think it goes back to what you said a second ago, is we set the learning standard. They go to travel practice or high school practice, and it's like that type of standard is put in their back pocket. And now that coach is like, no, this is your standard now. And so we've lost identity, you know? And I think that that's what drives me insane, is that these are kids, young kids, they're females trying to find their voice and who they are. And I try to do my job as much as possible so they know who they are. This is the platform I'm going to stand on, and I'm going to stand on it strong with my 2 feet. And you're not going to try to change my identity. And I think that's what's happening, is that they're going now to these practices and the coaches are like, no, this is your identity. And the parents and the players are like, yeah, that's my identity. Okay, yeah, I have to be this person, you know, that's going to throw 70, and I have to do that to get starting time. And I'm like, honey, you're all of 95 pounds soaking wet. That girl's going to throw 60 plus because she's got more mass than you. Like, we follow the equation, energy equals force and momentum plus mass. Like, bigger girls, I've always been a thicker girl. I'm going to throw a little bit harder because I got more mass. Another girl that is 6 foot, I'm 5'5", a girl that's 6'2", long and lengthy, she's naturally probably going to maybe throw a little bit harder because she's got length, but she doesn't have the muscle strength to get frontside resistance, to get sequencing, to have spine integrity and things like that. So she's going to have to train a little bit more in the strength training aspect, where I'm probably going to have to do more range of motion and mobility because I have more muscles, but my body won't move in a looser, maybe I need more vertical, you know, I'm too vertically stiff, whatever. Parents don't understand all of this. And when I throw those out and you talk about motor preferences, you talk about biomechanics, parents now are like, I'm sorry, what? I just want her to throw 60. Like, can we talk about that? And I'm like, I am talking about that, you know? So I think that's what bothers me the most.
I was thinking about, because you just ended off with the parent thing.
Yeah.
And I have heard parents say, I know my daughter's not in the best shape, you know, right? In a nice way of saying, you know, she may be a little overweight. And then I'll hear them say, you know, she's always up all night on her phone. And I'm like, well, do you want me to call her and tell her to get off her phone? And do you want me to?
That's
You're the one that goes grocery shopping. She doesn't go grocery shopping for herself.
No.
And you're the one that pays the cell phone bill.
Mm-hmm.
So, be a parent.
Yeah.
Be a parent.
Step in.
So, moving in another direction with regards to, because you mentioned a couple things. You mentioned spine integrity. You meant a lot, front side resistance. These are all terms that when you want to dig deep and you want to go into like, okay, here's how we need to move to be more efficient, right? I want you to give me the top. It may be more than 3, but if you want to go 5, go ahead and go 5.
Okay.
I'm a 15-year-old girl. I come in to see you. I got the work ethic. I'm stuck at 60. My goal is to get to 65.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not gonna go into like how much she weighs and how tall she is, but like,
yeah, we're good.
But like, and I'm gonna work, Coach. I'm gonna put the work in. How many times a week do I need to come in and see you? How many times a week should I be going to a strength trainer? What do I got to do? Just tell me what I got to do, and I'll do it. What are those 3 to 5 things? I'm 15. I'm stuck at 60. I need a new coach. My pitching instructor hasn't really got me better. I kind of hit a roadblock.
Yeah.
I needed a new fresh perspective. What does the next 3, 4, 5 months look like for that player?
All right, we're gonna look at the first thing I will do is where are you leaking force and energy? That's the biggest thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because you got to find out where are what I call the leaky pipes. Where are those at? And that's how you go straight into correctives. 9 out of 10 times, it's sequencing. There's a lack of hip to trunk movement, separation in the shoulders and the hips. And a lot of that is coming from weak core, weak glutes, not being able to properly sequence. And then that affects front side resistance and arm width. So that's your first plan attack right there is where is the leaky pipes happening? Are we transferring energy from the ground correctly? Mm-hmm. It's an elastic chain of reaction. It's all of it has to do with stretching a rubber band and firing it.
Yeah.
And if our bodies cannot understand that, we have a good path, but that road to success is a little bit longer. Uh-huh. And so that's the first thing that I would do is put them through basic exercises, I guess you would say, of like going back to, can they properly squat? Can they properly do a single leg squat? You're taking basic movements because a lot of our movements are basic workout movements, lunging. A lot of everything we do is in a split stance, not necessarily like in hitting, in a split stance this way, but our feet are not together. We're constantly separate, trying to rotate. I mean, we move in a linear line while we rotate, just like a tornado does. So if your body cannot properly move in a linear line while you're rotating, there's issues, major issues. And that's where the force and the energy is leaking. And that's just the biggest issue. I think a lot of the kids I fix is because there is no sequencing. 9 out of 10 times, there is no sequencing. They don't understand how important the core supports the spine, the front, and how important the glutes support the pelvis to be able to maintain that spine integrity. Mm-hmm. And when I use those terms, half of them are like, I don't know what you're talking about. So the lack of human anatomy just isn't there. And I think, like you said, it goes back to my daughter at the time was 7, and you were like, hey, do this. And she was like, yes, sir. Goes and does it. A lot of it, I think, is just because, again, I've taught her a lot of those, but she does hitting with Brinley. And, Brinley is just on it and teaches her those things, but holds her to the same standard. If you're not doing what you're supposed to say, you're going to give me some burpees. Like, she knows not to play around, with Brinley. And a couple of her teammates go to Brinley too. And so it's just, I think that's why it's worked so well with them, because she holds them to that standard, and then the girls know to hold each other. And we're talking about 8 and 9-year-olds.
I saw them.
There's a bunch of them. Come back, you're going to be shocked at the progression of these little girls, of how good they've gotten.
There was a bunch of them in that group, and I'm like, holy smokes.
Well, and I talked to Tommy, and he was like, Allie, give me some. We need 10 clients, and I was like, all right. And I was like, but hey, before I ask my clients, can my daughter and her friends go? I was like, I need this. And because he knows their, skill set. And I was like, they can hang, they'll be good. So they've already, it'd be good to have you back because if you see them now, you're gonna be shocked.
I can't wait.
You're gonna love it. But yeah, that's what I'm looking at. I'm looking at energy leaking. I'm looking at sequencing, how well the pelvis and the shoulders work together but separate at the same time, and then how well can they hold basic, functional exercises. And if they can't, we're trained by Austin Wasserman. So I have his complete program. I put him through that. So it's a combination of just everything that you have to, I'm not afraid to ask questions. If I don't know something, hey, Carrie, real quick, can you do this? Hey, send Austin an email. I've done multiple quick little meetings with our biomechanic doctor. Hey, how about this? I'll email Rick every once in a while. But it's just constantly asking the questions to figure out how can we help our athletes, and always just constantly learning to make sure that it's, hey, this is what you need. This is the assessment. Let's get it done. Here's your blueprint. Go do it.
Yeah. The Austin Wasserman higher level throwing program is a really important program for people who want to move better, become better movers. Yeah. Because it's not just about the ball and the weight of the ball. It's about the sequencing and the repetition of the sequence and the frequency that you do the program in. That helps with every aspect of your game as a rotational athlete, from hitting to throwing because it goes back to what, like you talked about, the sequencing. It goes back to the sequencing and the firing sequencing also. The order in which everything needs to fire. And in particular with how players are decelerated. People, when we talk about deceleration patterns and you look at how crucial that is, we don't really see it with the naked eye. Like, we can see it because we train to see it, but the average people are like, why would I want to decelerate? And I'm like, all right, well, here's why.
Because here's
and then you explain it and like, oh, okay. And I think a lot of it is education. And I think the parents have to really get into this. And they have to become smart about it. And they don't have to be an expert, but they do have to know a little bit about it. And I think the more the parent knows about it, the more the player will know about it. And the more exposure that athlete has to that information. Then the higher they can go and the further they can go in the game, and they can kind of reach their goals. So we got leaky pipes, sequencing, pelvis shoulder integrity. And then we have you talked about the higher level throwing program. Yeah.
I think too.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
It's being able to you kind of nailed it too. You have to know in pitching, and hitting is the same. A lot of our movements are very similar in the way that you have to create separation. But I think understanding acceleration and deceleration. At this, they work together, but your body cannot, when the lower half is decelerating, the upper body is accelerating, and vice versa. So being able, when you're transferring the energy, you have to know at what point in my body am I doing that. If they don't have sequencing, you lack a lot of that acceleration and deceleration. When our front foot gets down and that front leg stops the linear movement forward, the lower half is decelerating, and it's redirecting all of the energy and power back up through the leg, the hip, the core, up through the lat into the arm, and being able to pull. That's what acceleration is. A lot of people think that, or the parents or these instructors think, oh, if I just make my arm go really, really fast, that's acceleration. And it's like, no, that's physical therapy and an ER visit at some point. It's not.
I think there's the timing of the acceleration. There's the timing of it with regards to what's on the ground at the same time too. I see sometimes I'll watch a pitcher and I've been a pitching coach before, but when you look at a pitcher throw, you can see that that's not it.
Oh yeah.
Whether you have that timing, that can't be it. And it sometimes I'm like, how can someone allow you to do that for a whole year?
Yeah.
And not address it.
It's a common denominator. What are we doing?
And I like your verbiage when you talked about energy. I've been talking a lot about, just to kind of simplify it and get players to start asking themselves the right questions.
Yeah.
Because as a player, if you can do a self-assessment, or if you can self-coach, or you have the ability to feel your body in space,
yeah,
then you can start to make your own adjustments in game, pitch to pitch. Because I'm not going to be at every game my players play. But if they're in a bullpen situation, or even in a game situation, or in between innings, and they're like, okay, I feel like I know why, I know what's going on, and they can say to themselves, okay, now that I know what's going on, I can change some things. But I think most athletes just don't have the IQ to understand what the body has to do, and that's even before the ball is getting released, and you got all the fingers, and you got spins, and you got all the other parts of it, which is the last thing. But the question that I've been asking my athletes lately is, where's the energy going?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what direction is that energy going into? And we start asking them that question, they say, oh, I see. Yeah, that. Yeah. Like, it's going in the energy's going in the wrong direction. And then the other thing is I'm finding is most athletes, even before they know where the energy's going, they don't really know where the energy's coming from.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how do I initially harness that energy?
Yeah.
And sometimes those players aren't even harnessing in it. They're not harnessing the energy to get it to go to the right direction to begin with.
Yeah.
So those are things that I'm seeing on the hitting side, and on the throwing side, and on the fielding side. Just the overall, like, go out and play catch. And because if I'm playing catch overhand, there's a sequence. If I'm playing catch underhand, there's a sequence. If I'm just hitting self-toss, hitting fungos, there's a way that I'm going to naturally move. And then we have to say, ask ourselves the right questions, I think.
Yeah, no, I agree. Mm-hmm. I agree.
So on the spin side of things, right? As I'm watching pitchers in game, I'm realizing that a lot of pitchers they'll think they're throwing one pitch. I know you know where I'm going.
I do.
But then when you look at the spin of it, like, you know, with technology that we have available to us, and maybe they think they have three pitches, but they only have one pitch. Yep. Like, you think you have three pitches, but every pitch you throw is doing the same thing.
Yeah.
So where does
you ain't got it?
And this is the thing, like, if you're a pitch caller, does it really matter that they don't know what they're throwing, as long as you know what you want when you call it? Or because right now we have to win the game, because so many kids can't they can't even throw a strike. Some kids can't even willfully throw a strike.
No, at all. They're just too worried that they throw it hard, or some of my girls will throw a strike and they'll be so excited and they're like, Coach-Alli threw a strike, and I'm like, good. And they're like, you're not happy? And I'm like, can you do that 8 more times in a row? And the look on their face is like, no. And I'm like, well, that's why I'm not happy. Mm-hmm. You're trying to aim a strike. You're too worried about throwing it somewhere close in the strike zone, or just get it there. You know, we've all heard coaches, just throw a strike. Well, yeah. Like, what do you think they're trying to do? Throw balls? Mm-hmm. I mean, come on. You know, and I think that I always want my kids to feel what they're doing, because you have to be Coach-Alli when you walk out of here. Otherwise, your coaches, you probably know way more about pitching than when you step on that field than probably anybody there, unless one of my other clients are out there. Mm-hmm. You guys collectively know way more. So my girls do this. They call it like Coach-Alli on a card, and they get a 3x5 index card, and they write the cue things on there from lessons. They laminate it, and they put it in their little wristband, or they'll put it in their pocket. And when they're struggling, they pull it out real quick and they look at it and they're like, I got to do that. So they feel a little bit of sense of security of me being there, or they keep it in their bag. Because I get it. You know, these kids just aren't mentally trained correctly anymore. The older girls sometimes get caught in, you know, the failure aspect of it too much. Why am I failing? My dad's going to yell at me. And now they've lost themselves. And I'm like, well, what's your purpose now? They're like, I don't even know. I can't even throw a strike. And, and it's like always prepping to make sure that it's game-like every single time, and understanding that the job is to master 3 pitches. Like, you can't go to a college camp and they're like, how many pitches you throw? And you're like, 6. They're going to be like,
right.
Yeah, right. All right, let me see this, Sarah. Let me see these 6 pitches. They want to see that you can really spot 2 pitches and then throw in an off speed. I mean, that's it. We want to tunnel every single pitch. The pitcher that is going to pitch the most, or I should say should pitch the most, is the one that's going to get you outs. If she's going to cause the batter's barrel to miss the ball or hit the end of her bat, I'm starting her every time. I don't care if she's not a strikeout. There's 2 pitchers, a strikeout pitcher and a contact pitcher. Every kid wants to be a strikeout pitcher. Well, that's not it. Just like there's 2 type of hitters, and tell me if I'm wrong. You're either a contact hitter or you smoking that ball all the time. Like, just because a kid is huge doesn't automatically mean she's always going to hit bombs. It's just because.
So
I mean, I think we've lost.
And I agree, but I also know that even on a softball field, because it's such a small field, a hard hit ball, a ball hit 65, 70, 75 miles an hour between 65 and 70, 75. That's a hard ball to catch.
It is.
And the balls that are getting hit the hardest are the ones that the pitches are more over the middle of the plate.
Yeah.
Which brings me to my next question: command or velo?
Oh, command all day long.
Yeah, and I think that's a hitter's worst nightmare for all you pitchers out there. Like,
oh yeah,
if you could throw it harder, we don't care as hitters. Like, we'd rather you throw it harder. But if you got
you're good.
If you got command though, and you throwing and you're painting the corners and you're moving it and that's the most frustrating thing. And I think people underestimate changing speeds, the power of changing speeds, because that's another thing that hitters aren't, and that's the hardest thing for me to get my hitters. If I can help any pitchers out there, if you got multiple speeds, you are going to be a force to reckon with.
Yeah.
For sure.
1,000%. I had Alicia Ocasio on my Zoom call with my remote kids a couple weekends ago. And something she told them, we talked about her off-speed drop ball and how she just kind of developed it later into her pro year. And she was like, I had to. I'm not in college anymore. I'm playing literally with the best college players in a pro league. I have to bring something else to the table that I didn't bring in college, and I have to adapt. And she just said the reason my off-speed drop came about is I was just messing around with like finger placement, finger pressure, and she was like, kind of worked. And then she threw it again. She's like, all right, that kind of works again. And she just kept going, and she was like, and I threw it. And she dominated this past AU season just from an off-speed drop ball. Mixed it in with her regular drop ball, and I think she threw a rise after that. And I mean, that's all she needed. I mean, I talked to Brinley a lot. What are you seeing at your tournaments? When she came back from Georgia this weekend and I was trying to schedule Zay's lesson, I was like, what did you see? What did you like? What are you looking at? I want to know what's at that level too, because I want to make sure that I'm doing the right thing, or just, okay, that's how I have to train my more elite level pitchers that, come from out of state to train with me. I need to make sure that that's what they're working towards. I want an off-speed rise, if depending on the velocity of, the fastest they can throw their rise. I want them to be able to throw an off-speed drop if possible. You look at Rachel Garcia. She didn't have a changeup until her junior year because other teams started hitting her rise ball and hitting her curve. And so she got in a changeup, and then they were like, well, dang, I don't know how to hit her now.
She was pretty much unhittable, yeah.
I mean, it was great. I think another thing, too, that helped really people to really invest in the spin game when you had Kat Osterman. She, I think, broke the mold of 6'2", hands 3 times the size of mine, and she didn't throw over 63 miles an hour. And she kept saying, I don't want to throw hard. My ball's going to move perfectly at that lowerish to mid-60 range, and I can throw that at different levels. The same pitch. I can take one pitch and make it 5 pitches. I'm good. And I think that is what changed the game, and people kind of investing in, maybe I should work more on speed. Maybe I should take the same pitch and try to make it 4 pitches, but really I'm throwing 1. And if you can master 1 pitch, 2 pitches, and throwing an off speed, you can play anywhere.
Got that right.
I mean, but people don't understand that. They want the radar gun to say 72.
I don't know why. And the thing is, and it's down the middle. Nobody cares.
Every time. I mean, you look at, this is my personal opinion. People could say no. You look at Carlin Pickens. She throws gas, but why did LSU take her out of the first inning this last season? Because she doesn't have a whole lot of spin and command in the zone. She gets hitters to swing way out of the zone and be undisciplined. LSU is maybe by far one of the best hitting programs. And they had LSU, and they just didn't swing.
They had they were a older team. They were like juniors and seniors. Yeah. So they had the experience. Like, you're not going to get experienced hitters out.
No.
When you got a whole team of them like that, that's going to be hard. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they put in Peyton Gottschall, and she shut them down with her movement, and they couldn't hit her. But Carlin, they just stood in the box and didn't swing. And it was like, dang, we got to take her out. So I think that too, she's a great pitcher. I'm not taking that away from her.
Yeah, I understand. This is an example.
But I think that's another reason why people have to get out of their head. Like, fast is not always the thing. Yeah, you do have to have a certain velo to be able to throw certain pitches and to get a rise ball, because it's working against gravity. But making that and drilling it in your mind and your training, you've pretty much taken yourself as a pitcher out of the ball game. Right there, in my opinion. I mean, I think it goes back to identity and knowing who are you as a pitcher and what you bring to the table. That's how I trained and Rich told me, Ali, you're not going to gas in 67 or 68. All right, cool. So tell me, what do I got to do then to be effective? And he was like, you got to spin the heck out of that sucker. All right, well, let's do it. And that's why I was so effective, is I just spun the ball. I knew I wasn't going to throw hard. I was going to find 2 pitches that I was going to be great at based on my anatomy, my mass, how I could mentally manipulate my fingers in just little movements, but have the same foundation. And that's why I was dominant. I got that whole I need to be fast out of my mind when I think I was in high school. And it's crazy how much better I got from that. Still with bad work ethic.
You know, it's funny. I had an interesting conversation with a really smart pitching person.
Yeah.
But he's a numbers guy, so he looks at a lot of stats and a lot of details.
Yeah.
With regards to the analytics of the numbers. So like how many pitchers get first pitch strikes and why first pitch strikes are important.
Yep. And
how hard it is to get strike 3 for some pitchers.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of pitchers, because they're trying to get the strikeout, it's almost more economical to have to face the batter and have a 2-pitch out. Get more pop-ups, get some ground balls, so you don't have to go deep into counts and throw 6, 7, 8 pitches trying to get a strikeout every time you pitch. And I think we've been ingrained in our head that the strikeout it's just a sexy thing. Oh, the strikeout's sexy. No, what's sexy is winning.
Yeah.
That's winning.
Point blank.
And I think and winning the pitch and winning the at bat and working ahead. And I think when pitchers start to realize that when I'm working ahead, I'm just going to win more games.
Yeah.
They'll make that the important thing.
Yeah.
And I think I think command is really a thing. So this has been for your first time on my podcast. I'm set it up for another one.
Let's do it.
And I like to do have recurring guests, because in the first one I like to kind of introduce my guests to my audience.
Yeah.
And then I like to bring them back multiple times, because there's so many more things to talk about. There are current things that need to be talked about, like there's new pitching rules and people are pro hopping now and all this other stuff. And there's so many different things that we can go into. But I really appreciate your time and coming on and sharing and giving us a piece of who you are. I think it's always good to have platforms like this, because one, it helps to for your own personal brand.
Yeah.
To get you out there a little bit too, and so people can know what you're doing and what you're offering. And I believe that we are a community in the softball world, and the sharing of information. I don't believe that the game can go forward if everybody feels like they don't want to share.
Yeah,
for sure. Because if it had not been for someone sharing with me, I wouldn't be where I'm at. Mm-hmm. So now there's more people coming up, and we need instruction to get better for the game to get better, so we can get back to winning. We need to get back to winning gold medals.
Yeah, no, I agree.
We need to get back to that. It starts with people like us. So I appreciate you coming on.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
I'm glad you came on. And before you leave, I'd like you to let my audience know how they can get in touch, how they can find you on the socials, on the web, on the World Wide Web. If you have any new programs that we can make available to them.
Yeah. My Facebook and Instagram is just McKnight Softball. I think it says instruction on there. I just kind of rebranded to McKnight Softball. We're on Facebook, Instagram. I just launched a couple months ago my Seams Up app. So that link is also on my Instagram and Facebook. It's just remote training video. I have a mentorship program for other pitching coaches. My second remote, I have another remote training option where it's more of a community based. So you get a program for a whole 4 weeks. It's weekly accountability where you're sending me videos. We do a Zoom call every Sunday and we talk about literally everything. We studied Kobe Bryant's Mamba mentality. I had Alicia Ocasio on there talking about recruiting and pitching. My cousin's coming on Sunday for nutrition. They get a complete plan designed strictly for you. So it's constant communication with me. And then obviously I have my in-person lessons and then I have intensive. So girls fly in, drive in from all over. I also go to the Bahamas and train out there. One of my old instructors is from there. So they are, CJ actually came last time and we did like we're trying to help build softball in the Bahamas and do something big. So we work on that. But just sending me an email message, all that, it's all on there.
You just want to go to the Bahamas.
I do. I love it.
That's phenomenal.
I love it out there. It's
That's
awesome.
great. Of course. All right, that's great. So I'm looking forward to having you on again. I appreciate your time. And we're going to go ahead and wrap this one up.
Okay. Thanks.